We all hope it'll never happen, but I'm sure most of us have had a car start playing up and force us to the side of the road. And if your luck's anything like mine, that'll happen in the middle of nowhere on a pitch black night and you'll need both your hands free to work. Or maybe you just want to show off your hard work in the engine bay next time you're waiting for a kebab. Either way, you're going to want to stick around and check out this super cheap and easy mod. An automatic under bonnet light, or even a DIY work light that's small enough that you can fold it up and stash it away anywhere in your car. Hope you enjoy this one. Oh, geez, those little suckers are bright. Hey there guys, and welcome back into Browney's garage. Today we're taking a quick break from our basic barra performance mod series to bring you an easy mod that you can try on practically any car you like. Now, whilst the idea of fitting a strip of LED lights to the underside of your bonnet to help you either working in there or to show off what you've got isn't a new idea, to be honest, it isn't something that I'd really come across until recently, and it seems like a damn good idea. That, along with LED prices and tech being as good as they are now, mean that you can have a go at doing something like this at home on a pretty small budget and still get some satisfying results. You could probably piece together a version of what we're going to be doing today for under $20 or $30 if you were careful. Before we get into everything else you need, there's been a concern I've seen raised on similar installs, and that relates to this double-sided tape that's normally used on the underside of these LED strips and how it will last with the under bonnet heat. Now, I've had a strip like this in the VE Commodore, my daily driver, for roughly 5,000 to 10,000 kilometers at the moment, and that seems to be holding up just fine, so you might get away with that. But I did want to try another solution. Here's what I've come up with. High temp sealant from good old Bunnings. This stuff's designed to be used around ovens and other high temperatures, so the heat under your bonnet isn't going to bother it. And whilst it's strictly speaking not an adhesive, it's a sealant rather, I don't imagine it'll be much of an issue considering how little weight this is going to be holding up. No guarantees on this, but I have been testing it again on the VE Commodore, and it hasn't been an issue, it's holding on just fine, and it looks to be, from my testing, fine to remove without damaging the paint. Let's go ahead and take a look at the other materials we'll be using today, a lot of which you may already have laying around the garage. If not, these can generally be picked up from most auto parts store, or if not, my good friend eBay of course. To start off, you'll of course need your strip of lights. There's a ton of options for these and they're crazy cheap. I've gone with a waterproof strip of cool white 50/50s with a black backing. The 50/50 simply refers to the lights being used being 5mm by 5mm lights. These LED strips come with wires already connected at the start, but can be cut to size at any of these marked sections and extra wires soldered in at these points if needed. Multiple sections can also be joined in separate locations by doing this. This whole 5 metre strip cost under $15 and they can be had even cheaper than that. If you really wanted to be that bit extra special down at the local Macca's car park and have some fun, you can get these with RGB LEDs and controllers to change the colour of the light and add all sorts of strobe or changing effects. Next are some basic wire connectors or some solder and heat shrink, as well as a ring terminal connector. A set of wire strippers, a crimper tool and soldering iron if you're going that way. Some small gauge wire and an inline fuse holder for safety. These lights don't draw much power or current, so we shouldn't need anything rated at more than 10 or 15 amps absolute max, even for a heap of these lights. You'll also want to use some form of wiring protection, corrugated tubing, or these cool PET braided sleeves we'll be using. Depending on how you want this set up, you can go a basic toggle switch if you want to be able to manually control the lights. I'm thinking I'll reuse this one I pinched from our shift kit install, but that may be pushing my soldering ability a bit. Or you can use some sort of sensor if you want them to come on automatically. I'll be using a bonnet or door switch like this, but there's other options you could try like magnetic switches or a tilt switch, whatever you think will work best for you. And some wax and grease remover and paper towels to clean any mounting surfaces. There's also a portable version that you can make that isn't permanently mounted. There's a few ways to do this, but I'll be using these cheapo magnets I picked up from Bunnings. And we'll also be using some alligator clips to make attaching it to power quick and easy. Let's start off by making that portable version as practice and to give me a better idea of exactly what I'd like to do on the full install. Start by carefully removing some of the waterproofing. Go ahead and cut and strip the wire to the length you'd like. I've given it about 1.5 meters to allow it to be used in a few different spots with the wiring out of the way. These LED strips do often come with some wiring already connected for those without soldering gear, but because I've cut this longer strip into sections, I need to solder wires into each of those sections. Easy enough, as each section has copper pads to allow for this. Or at least it would have been with some slightly smaller wire and greater soldering ability. Not too bad though. Don't forget to slip your heat shrink over first ideally. Electrical tape could also be used here. We're also going to use this to hold on a magnet for quick mounting of the light, and this heat shrink should help stop those magnets scratching the paint. Note here from future me, one of those cheapo magnets isn't enough at the wiring end. Go with a couple or use stronger magnets. I'm doing the same to the other end to ensure no chance of earthing on the unwired section, and adding again another magnet for mounting. We're then going to connect our wiring to some small alligator clips. Wait, why are they alligator clips? Can you get crocodile clips? I bet those would be heaps more badass. Anyway, connect your soft little alligator clips to the ends of the wiring. These are great for quickly connecting our light up to the battery. Then just clip it on somewhere and test it out. That's it for our portable kit. This can easily be rolled up and stored away in a safe spot in case of emergencies. That's a good practice run with that kit, and a good option to just throw in the car or use a really inexpensive work light. The permanent version is only going to be slightly more complicated than that, and it's given me a good look at how this could turn out. So let's get stuck into it. Start by working out where you'd like to mount your lights. Where you want yours comes down to personal preference and what you have to work with, and you could even have them in multiple locations. On our BA Falcon, this section right near the front of the bonnet will allow the lights to angle perfectly down on the engine, even if it unfortunately isn't flat the whole way across. Just bear in mind when planning the mounting location that you'll want a way to run the wires so they are mostly concealed, such as through the bonnet supports or under bonnet insulation if you're lucky enough to have this fitted. At this stage you'll want a rough idea where everything else will be, or do as I have and add in way more wire to the lights than will be needed. If you need to drill any holes, make sure to add a touch of paint. I've just dabbed on some clear here. This could have been done with no drilling, but I think it's a little bit tidier for me to do it this way. Then start running the wires from the lights. A smaller wire taped to the actual end of the wire that you'll use was a great help here to work it through the bonnet bit by bit. Be sure to avoid any hinged or moving parts that may damage the wires. On that, make sure your wiring is well protected anywhere near sharp edges that could cut or rub through and cause a short. Corrugated tubing around the wire will help with this. Similar to that is this PET sleeve I've already placed over the wires. This PET sleeve seems much better suited to smaller wires and holes and looks a little bit cleaner. Rubber grommets or panel edging are also really good options if they suit your application. Let's now work through the positive side wiring. If you're only using a toggle switch, this will simply run in line with the power to the lights. You may want to mount this switch somewhere, but I'll just be pushing this down out of sight for ours. And we'll of course be using an inline fuse on the power wire. This will be wired in nice and close to the battery. A ring terminal is used at the end of the fused power wire and secured to a bolt on the battery positive terminal. Wait until everything is set before connecting this up. Easy enough, so let's move on to the earth side of the wiring. If you're not using one of these bonnet pin style or other switches, then you can earth the black wire to whatever suits or run it back to the negative terminal on the battery. On our install, we'll be using the toggle switch that has just been wired in as a safety in conjunction with an already existing bonnet switch from this aftermarket alarm that I'm slowly removing piece by piece. But if you don't already have one installed, it's pretty simple and there's a ton of possibilities for this. You could go ahead and drill and bolt it to a location that suits, as our system has here, or you may be able to make or find a bracket and mount it to an existing bolt like on the guards or an existing hole. The main points to remember when finding a mounting point though are that it can obviously be depressed when the bonnet is down, but perhaps less obvious is that it must have contact with a metal surface. This pin is normally going to function as an earth point when used in installs, as it will on ours. If you're happy with how it all looks, then it's time to finish mounting the lights. Clean the mounting surface very thoroughly with some paper towel and wax and grease remover, then wipe it off with a dry paper towel. Peel the backing off the double-sided tape and stick it on. As mentioned earlier, this is likely more than enough, but I'm taking that extra step to try our high temp sealer. I've gone ahead and lightly mounted it using the provided double-sided tape for good reason though. I'm trying to keep this install tidy, so with the strip mounted in position for now, I'm masking around the edges of it. You'll see what this is for in a second. Once I'm happy, I've once again removed the strips and broke a small section off the end. Do this very carefully. The double-sided tape can then be picked and removed from the back of the strip light, with some effort mind you. We then want to repeat the wax and grease remover step to the area inside of the masking as well as the back of the LED strips. Run a fine line of the high temp sealant, not much is required. Then push the lights back into position carefully within the masking tape and apply some pressure. Any excess sealant will be squeezed out. Carefully remove the masking tape and with it the excess sealant, hopefully leaving a clean edge. I've then carefully applied some masking tape to hold the lights tightly to the bonnet while that sealant dries up. And there it is, job done. Now, it's not going to replace a dedicated work light, but it should be plenty enough for those times that I can't be bothered going to grab one and set it up. And hopefully I never need it on the side of the road, but if I ever do, this will be plenty enough and you'll be able to use both hands. You won't have to hold a torch or your phone while you're working and trying to get yourself back on the road or work out what's gone wrong. With that done, I'm looking around the engine bay now and there's a few things I'd like to tidy up, so keep an eye out for that coming up, as well as, of course, finishing up our Barra Performance Mod series. That'll be coming up shortly, hopefully. So, make sure you subscribe for those if you'd like to catch those as they come out. As always guys, thanks for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this one, something a little bit different, and we'll catch you in the next one. Cheers.